Pomni's like 6 because they're both in an unfamiliar place and we see the world through their eyes.
There's a pretty good comparison to be made between Pico and Jax.
Ragatha and Pearl both kind of take on this big sister caretaker role over Pomni and 6 to kind of guide them through this brand new world.
One common and useful storytelling tool is to see the story through the eyes of a character who is going through a similar thing of, not knowing what's going on, experiencing things for the first time. That's what they have with Pomni and Amazing Digital Circus, just showing up for the first time and being told everything, and the audience, slips right in because we don't know what's going on either, and we're figuring things out as she is.
Pomni's like 6 because they're both in an unfamiliar place and we see the world through their eyes.
He's clearly unfamiliar with this culture, and he stumbles in and quickly realizes things aren't how he expects.
One thing I really like about Digital Circus is Pomni's eyes. They're kind of like, they draw you in, they're interesting to look at. And so, she's thrust into the world and she's sort of like looking around, and Six sort of has that same vibe when he's brought to Fort West and he doesn't know what's going on and he's just looking around, very reactionary. His eye is the thing that communicates the most, and we specifically gave that mouth like a limited number of letters. And so when he says something, there's an ambiguity to it, so 1 word, 2 words. You don't know exactly what he means, hard to tell, but you have to look at his body language, you have to look at his eyes, you have to look at the situation to know more.
Bandits!
Another, kind of maybe people disagree with this, maybe this is controversial, is that we actually think there's a pretty good comparison to be made between Pico and Jax.
Whatever you say, kid.
And this is a tough one because Jax and Pico are very different. That we have to admit, they are very different. Like, Jax is kind of mean. Like, he's kind of cruel, actually. I think if I'm guessing in further episodes, he might be kind of a villain character. And that's, I mean, spoilers. I don't think Pico is a villain in any way.
I think one of the ways they're similar, Jax is so, he has a confidence. He's like, everything he says, he's got a smile on his face and his teeth are showing.
Yeah.
And, and he's very sarcastic, but there's that underlying super confidence with whatever he says. And Pico is very confident. So they're similar in that way. It's just that Jax, you're not totally sure. Is he because there's just a little edge. It's so much in Digital Circus has that sort of edge of like something kind of is unsettling right beneath the surface, and that's what you feel with Jax.
Yeah, he's a really likable jerk kind of character.
Ladies first. No, wait, why would I say that?
Especially in these first 2 episodes, Pico, Pearl's half-brother, does take something kind of like that and an attitude like that where he's very set in his ways, like a lot of the people in their culture. He's set in his cowboy ways, and he just doesn't really see the value in other ways of thinking. And he kind of has that a teeny bit of that cynical confidence to him, but it's balanced out by his relationship with Pearl, because he cares for Pearl a lot, even though he doesn't quite understand her. So pretty quickly in the show where we get to circumstances where he has to challenge himself and try to think differently.
Kane and Reed both kind of take on this leadership role, and they both kind of have a duty to provide structure to the other characters. Kane is kind of this godlike figure, and he has a lot of power over the world of the Digital Circus, but Reed, his power kind of comes from his legacy in MechWest, I think. So a lot of people look to Kane for guidance and reassurance the same way they look to Reed.
I think Kane wants control, but I think he also secretly wants the townspeople of Digital Circus to be happy. And one of the things he sees happening is that they want to get out. And so he's making these exits that aren't real. It's oh, sorry, I didn't finish that one. And maybe it's not an exact comparison, but I just feel like Reed is trying to, create normalcy and structure in that same way. He is the caretaker of the town. You see the scene of him fixing stuff, and that's kind of Kane's building. Let's talk about doors, right? You literally he's building doors or fixing doors, that kind of thing.
Yeah, we get a relatively small amount of time to spend with Reed in this first episode. We'll see more of him later on in the series, but yeah, there's very much a sense of kind of like Pico, he's set in his ways, and he has control of this situation. I would say the biggest difference with him and with Kane is Reed is pretty oblivious to his daughter. I think he kind of like, in some ways, he kind of gave up on trying to understand Pearl a long time ago. You know, he says, I don't understand why she does the things she does. It just doesn't make sense. So in some ways, he's somewhat hands off with her, and she, as a result, she's able to do a lot of things under his nose, like everything she does in this first episode with Six.
So we kind of talked about, Pomni and Six being this sort of fish out of water, learning about a whole brand new environment that they're kind of plopped into. Ragatha and Pearl both kind of take on this big sister caretaker role over Pomni and Six to kind of guide them through this brand new world. They're kind of these gentle souls that the audience kind of roots for.
I love that comparison. And there's that one moment where Ragatha is been thrown around and is hurt, and she's like glitching out. She has this like unassuming way. She's like, oh, maybe you could help me out a little bit. And it's so pathetic, but it's like really unassuming. Like, could you trouble yourself to keep me from dying? It kind of reminds me of Pearl, as she's like very unassuming, and like she wants to help, but she's very unassuming in the sense that she doesn't really insert herself very easily into situations where she gets a lot of clapback with her way of seeing the world and has to sort of retreat, MechWest is just a fun story. It's just a cool idea. People haven't really done anything with Westerns in animation. And so this is a sort of a magical take where you've got the Old West and then you've got robots. It's a different idea. It's something that people haven't really seen yet. It's fun. It's mostly for fun. Just a few months ago when I found out we're not the only ones doing indie animation on YouTube. And I found out about a few other shows. And then there was Glitch Productions. They did a virtual expo with other creators. First, I learned about Lackadaisy, just fantastic 2D show. Once sort of YouTube knows, oh, you're like that kind of thing, then eventually it served me up, Digital Circus. And so I was just amazed. Just that's exactly the concept that we were going for, which is this large YouTube audience directly connecting with fans rather than sort of going through a studio structure.
Yeah, so we wanted to tell a story that's an animated show that's very serialized. Every episode, is leading toward a larger story. There's a bigger story being told.
We think that there's a lot of people who love it if it's done right, and that's why we're here. Yeah, I mean, I just stumbled across it, and I think I was drawn to the design of Pomni. Well, first you see the design of Kane, and just the uniqueness of it and how strange it is. And then you got that sort of like a 90s, 2000s computer look vibe.
Yeah.
But I think Pomni has a really compelling design, and something about her eyes and her reactions to things just kind of draw you in. And I know they were going for that sense of sort of like existential angst, and she's in this sort of like sucked into this digital world and can't get out. And I don't know, I think that's connecting to people where they feel very connected to the digital world, and it has that feeling of being trapped, and they're used to being trapped, right? Mm-hmm. And there's this like a sense of dread and hopelessness.
How do I take this headset off?
Just keep grabbing at it. That worked for all of us.
Again, like watching this pilot, amazing how many people like were so into this, and how many people they were able to reach in so little time. And I think some of it has to do with it was a really funny episode. With MechWest, though, we wanted to do something a little different, and it feels a little more. It's more sincere, it's more sentimental, a little more adventurous. Most of what we do doesn't come from a place of examining the horrors of existence, even though that's interesting. That could be, an interesting and funny thing.
There's like a hopefulness underlying MechWest. I kind of feel like, well, going back to the creator of Digital Circus, Gooseworks, and she said that it's like silly, but with a bleak and depressing underbelly. That's the quote. That's exactly what it is, And
Yep.
Our show is silly, but it has like an earnestness or sincerity that it doesn't have that same sort of undertone. And you could think of it this way, where In MechWest, it's kind of like a stylized real world, but then you insert some silly elements. You insert the robots, which make no sense to put technology back then, right? It's like, how does this work? And people are mad in the comments, like, how does this even work? Well, it doesn't work. It's silly. But you insert that one thing into a kind of real feeling world. Whereas with Amazing Digital Circus, it's almost like you're taking real characters and inserting them into this completely unrealistic world. They're the only real things in a way. And you get this sense that everything else is just a disturbing illusion.
We wanted to go the indie route because there's lots of pros to that as far as creative control and things like that. But it's hard. Yeah, just seeing that there are channels out there that have succeeded, that alone is like, oh, that's a big inspiration. And it's awesome to know that there are people who want to see cool indie animation. It's a funny show that clearly has gotten a lot of people really passionate about its characters and its story, and that's just a fun thing to see.
It is. It's really inspiring. I think it feels very freeing at a time that's scary.
And we hope we can find the people who will feel that way about MechWest too.